Before I start this presentation, I'd like to request all of you guys to please take out your mobile phones. I'm serious, take it out. Take out your mobile phones and Google this for me. Make it fast. How to suicide. That is correct. How to suicide. I know some of you are judging me right now, looking at me in fear, probably thinking, what the hell did I sign up for? This guy was supposed to be a motivational TEDx talk guy, and now he's talking about suicide and stuff. Well, don't worry, you're in the right room, you're talking to the right person. My name is Karthik. I'm a blogger and an entrepreneur from Kochi. I don't have anything life-changing or significant enough to share with you today, but just my simple, humble life of how I went from being a small-town guy to having a successful career in the Silicon Valley, and how I decided to quit all of that and come back to India to pursue my passion in blogging. I'll come back to the suicide article towards the end of this presentation, so keep that tab open. So in order to share my story with you, I need to take you a couple of years back to the early 90s when I was in the school. So the 90s, so how many of you guys, I don't know, are from the 90s or lived in the 90s? For those of you who've been there, know that 90s is the best time that you've ever lived, perhaps, because you had a lot of options, a lot of open spaces to play around with, video games, Ek Se Badkar Ek, and Ramayana on Sundays, and life was so much fun, a lot of options. The only thing you didn't have an option for is your career, because you would either become a doctor or an engineer. That's about it. And I was a confused kid because I wasn't interested in either of those. So all of that changed one day when one of my friends called me up to his house and said, dude, you have to check this out. I got a computer, and it's magical because it connects to the internet. And I said, what the net? Internet. So I decided to check it out anyways. So I go to his house, and there's this big computer there, but besides the computer, there was this little black box, which almost looked like a UFO to me, with all kinds of lights blinking on it and everything. And I thought to myself, okay, what is this? Little did I know that I was about to fall in love with the internet that day, and I was about to listen to the most beautiful song that I would ever listen to in my whole life. And that song went something like, I don't know how many of you recognize that voice, but it was a dial-up modem. It was a freaking dial-up modem. And I was literally getting hooked up to the internet that day. And like any teenagers would do, me and my friends spent hours together on the internet, checking out different stuff, researching Wikipedia, and talking to people whom we thought were females. But what actually got my attention was this whole idea of being able to put up an idea or information on the internet through a website, and someone sitting halfway around the globe in the US or UK, being able to collaborate on that, give you feedback, comment on it, was just mind-blowing to me. I couldn't just get enough of it. So what did I do? I started researching about this technology behind the internet, how websites are made, how things are being done on the internet side of things, how to create websites and how to bring people into your website and things like that. Fast forward a couple more years, by the time I got out of school, I had a bunch of websites to myself. A couple of them were dedicated to my celebrity crushes, but I also had an NRI network. I also had a website that was about music sharing. Don't ask me anything more about it. This is a public platform. I can't reveal you more about it. But it was fun because I was making money on the side. I was making maybe 5,000 to 7,000 rupees per month. For someone who goes to school, that was big money. So I kept doing it. And I stumbled upon blogging during that time because everybody was doing blogging. This was around 2004, 2005. Everyone was doing blogging and it was making money. So I thought, why not? So I started 2 blogs, both of which changed my life forever, like forever. The first blog was a personal blog of mine. It was called moneykarthik.com. It still exists. And I used to think about the most interesting things in this whole life, in this whole universe, and I wrote about it. Stuff like what I wore in the morning, what did I have for breakfast, which movie I watched that weekend, what is the purpose of life, stuff that nobody gave a damn about. But I kept writing because in my head, the world was my platform, and I could write whatever I wanted on my blog. The second blog was a technical one, and on that blog, I wrote a lot of stuff about my experience running websites, developing websites, bringing traffic to them, and all those technicalities involved. And this started getting some traction, because now there were people in the US and UK who had businesses of their own and had websites of their own who wanted help. So they started commenting and contacting me and asking me for help. So I started doing a freelance consultation job. Time went by, it was making good money, and I was doing a lot of odd jobs in between, a lot of odd jobs, a lot of irrelevant stuff. Irrelevant stuff like taking an MBA. And I did that. Now, by the time I was in MBA, I had a bunch of websites. I was doing really fine. I was making money and everything. And I told you about the personal blog I was writing, right? So one day, I got an email from someone. And that email said something like, the title of the email was, the subject line was very interesting. It said, "Dear Money, F you." I can't use that word here, but that was exactly what the email said. "Dear Money, F you." And that got me interested, because that's a very uncommon thing you get on emails. So I checked out the email, and it turns out that this gentleman had checked out one of my articles, and he was pissed off. So he said, send that hate email to me. And the article was an article I wrote in 2012. It was 5 easy and painless ways to suicide. And this is the article you were just checking out in the first part when you Google for how to suicide. Now, the American dream. While I was doing my freelance consultation, one of my friends or clients who I was working for like 3-4 years called me up and said, "Mani, you've been working us for 4 years, but now post the 2008 depression, we've had a situation because all of our, the team has dispersed off because of cost cutting. We would like you to come to USA and take over our digital marketing team." And I happily obliged because, yay, the American dream, right? I'm about to go to America. So I called up my folks, my family, and I told them, "Guys, pack your bags, we're going to America." And they also said, "Yay, we're going to America, the American dream." So I landed up in America, and this changed my life forever. Like, one more time. Forever. Because now I was in America, and it felt like all this while I was standing on the sidewalk, doing simple odd jobs, and now I was right in the middle of the freeway, and I was doing like crazy stuff. There was traffic going back and forth of me, and it was just too much to comprehend for me. But I was working with the smartest minds in the industry, the biggest budgets I could ever think of, the biggest brands I could ever think of, right in the Silicon Valley. And it was just that 7 years I spent in the US, I probably learned the most of the things that I ever learned in my life. But all of that came to a standstill when I watched a movie on Netflix. Happens to be this movie, TEDxAJCE. And after watching this movie, things came to a standstill to me. Because I would go to the corner of my office, look up into the sky, pretending to be Shah Rukh Khan, and ask very profound questions to myself, like, do I belong here? What about my community back in India? Don't they want me? Shouldn't I go back? Things like this. And, I also kind of realized that I was an entrepreneur back then. I wanted to do something on my own. But being on H-1B visa, you're a slave. You're not allowed to do any of those things until you get your green card or your citizenship. And so I decided the only solution in front of me was one thing, which was to quit my job. And me being an impatient guy, if I wanted something tomorrow, I wanted it yesterday, so I quit my job. And while I was quitting my job, I was researching about, okay, now I'm moving back from USA to India. What are the things I should do to take care of things? Like, for example, what do I do with my 401k? What do I do with my car? What do I do with my savings account? How do I start a PAN card? How do I apply for an Aadhaar card? Things like these. And I realized that there was a lot of information available on the internet, but it was either outdated or on different other websites, was all over the place. So that got me really furious because I'm the website guy, right? You have to have perfect websites. So what did I do? It was a lazy weekend, and I thought, okay, I got time to myself. I'll do these guys a favor. Let me make a website and show them how a good website is made. So I created backtoindia.com, which was a single-page website with a checklist of items that any NRI should do who wants to go back to India or plans to go back to India in the near future. So I made the website, and I went back to sleep. It sounds very cliche, but the moment I woke up, I realized that I had about 147 WhatsApp messages waiting for me. People were calling me up. People were messaging me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, what have you. The NRI diaspora in the US was actually embracing it. I got about 14,000 shares just for this website in those 48 hours. Now, I have to be very honest here. I had a dream when I was like 10 years before that, I had a dream. I was being interviewed in a bloggers meetup where somebody put up a camera on my face and asked, what would you do if you were the CM of Kerala, Chief Minister of Kerala? And I told them, I will bring all the NRIs back and have them invest back in Kerala, because imagine the talent pool that you can imagine, with all that money and all that talent back invested in Kerala or in India. That'll be amazing, isn't it? So I had this secret wish within me, and I realized that while doing this project, this is what it was happening. The universe is conspiring. It's telling me something, money, go do this. So I quit my job. So I got back to India, and I started my own company, and I started blogging, because that's my passion. And today, it's 2 years past since I started this project. We have about 2,500 active members. We have a Facebook group. We have multiple WhatsApp groups for every major city in the US, every major city in India. There are people who actually move back to India after spending 25 years in the US, people who move back to India like 7 years back, who are helping other people who wants to move back to India make the move smoother and faster. And we just had our meetup in Hyderabad and Bangalore. We're planning to do it with more cities in the near future. And I'm hoping that this project scales and I'm able to bring every NRI who wants to come back to India at some point of time back to India and invest back in India, because I believe India is the future. I hope the reverse brain drain is actually a phenomenon and it happens. Now, I told you about my blogging stuff, right? So I told you this gentleman wrote me a hate email about, hey, money, go F yourself. So I realized that there was this suicide article that was doing the rounds. Google, for some reason, took up that article, showed it on the front page of Google for everyone who was searching for how to suicide. And the article is not what it looks like. It's not an easy and painless way to suicide explanation kind of article. It's a different one. You have to actually read the article to understand what it is. But something really fascinating happened. For every third hate email I would get, there'll be one email that comes in which says something like what you're seeing on the screen right now. It would say something like, hey, Money, I read your article. I was contemplating suicide tonight, but then I read your article, and I'm thinking of pushing it for maybe a few more days. Thanks for getting me out of this situation. Thanks for getting me out of this rut. And that hits deep within right there. I know a lot of people think about blogging as a way to make money, and of course it's about making money. I make about 5 figures in dollars every month just from blogging. But that's not what drives me. What drives me is the kind of profound and significant positive impact I can make in some random stranger's life because of my blog, because of my shower thought, because of some random stuff that I thought about when I woke up. And that drives me to do what I'm doing today. And that brings to the question, how do you define success? How do you define success? I think in my experience, and I could be completely wrong, pardon me if I'm wrong, I think success is defined in 2 ways. One is in the joy of giving. You could think about all the things you could do with all the money that you can amass. I could be living in the US, driving a Tesla, living in my swanky apartment, taking vacations to Europe every now and then. Life would be all happy. But would I be actually happy? Of course I would be happy for some time. But beyond that, you would get bored of it. But the joy you get from helping someone, the joy you get from making an impact in someone else's life, is just invaluable. And the second thing, the way I define success, is the freedom you get. Now, all of us want that freedom, but none of us get it. Or maybe a few of you get it. And I define freedom as the opportunity or the ability to do something that you really love and not be judged for it. Like today, I can go into my home office. I can do whatever I want. I can pick up projects based on my passion, pick up projects that I think would be making an impact in today's world. Or I could be watching Netflix all day. Nobody really cares. Or maybe I shouldn't have said that. But that freedom you get is just amazing. So blogging lets me do that, these 2 things, which is to make impact in other people's life in a very significant and positive way. And it gives me the freedom to do what I actually want to do. And I know that many of you guys, a couple of years from now, would be aspiring to do a big MNC job, taking a fat paycheck, and sitting in a cubicle doing an amazing job. What might actually happen is that you might be sitting in a cubicle, stuck to a wrong job, doing stuff that you never liked, or you hate. This is the reality today. So I only have one thing to share with you guys. Follow your heart, follow your passion. and choose things that actually makes you happy. When I say follow your heart, don't hurt other people. Be gentle, but follow your heart and follow your passion. And try to please yourself first, not others around you, because that's a big mistake a lot of us make. And I'm seeing that, because today we're seeing a lot of doctors who are supposed to be actors, a lot of accountants who are supposed to be singers, just because they didn't follow their passion and they're stuck in the wrong place. I don't want you guys to be that. I hope you can learn something from this presentation. I hope it was entertaining. If you go back home, think about it, and if there's one thing that'll actually inspire you to do something, I'll be the most happiest person in the world. Thank you, guys. You've been an amazing crowd. Thank you.